On March 31st, 2015, PlayStation Home, the short-lived social space for PlayStation 3, closed its doors for the very last time. Despite being largely a critical failure, PlayStation Home had quietly amassed a very loyal and free-spending community, turning the assumed misstep into a commercial win for Sony. But with Home's closure, its fans were now left in the dark, waiting longingly for an alternative that never came.
I got my PlayStation 3 just because of PlayStation Home. Being announced that it was going to close, I was devastated.
And I remember not even going to school the next day.
6 years later, some of its most loyal fans just can't let go. They make their voices heard through online petitions and YouTube videos campaigning for its return. But some of its most passionate fans have decided to take the next step, finding ways to not only completely restore PlayStation Home, but hopefully preserve it in video game history for generations to come.
If I have kids one day, I would like to show, this is what PlayStation Home looked like.
Keeping the community alive is a whole other story.
Even when it closed, I was trying to conceive there's got to be somebody out there with the same interest. Home was such a great game. A few years later, voila, here I am.
This is the inside story of the fans who refused to let PlayStation Home die.
Hey everyone, whoever is watching, my name is Nagato, and I am one of the content devs who works on a restoration project for PlayStation Home. I've been working on this project for almost 1 and 2 years, and our overall goal is to restore PlayStation Home's online clients. I've always been into modding and all of that stuff, but really what set it off was PlayStation Home.
Destination Home is a non-profit project, attempting to revive PlayStation Home for not only the community's pleasure, but perhaps more importantly, game preservation, the act of archiving and restoring video games for future generations.
Our goal is to not really step on the toes of the actual companies and developers. We don't support piracy. We don't profit from money from this at all. This is something we're doing as sheer passion projects. So what we want to do is just host these games on our own servers, so for people for preservation purposes only.
Preserving game history in its essence is about keeping a game's code alive, something that's made substantially more complicated when a game like PlayStation Home is not only online based, but unfortunately long dead. But let's rewind a little and answer a more pressing question. What exactly was PlayStation Home? What began life as Sony's first foray into the social space evolved into its own commercial beast entirely. At its peak, delivering a wholly unique digital experience, including month-long spanning ARGs, brand-centric spaces loaded with virtual experiences, and even a digital recreation of Sony's E3 presence to explore. But this microtransaction juggernaut of a game platform began life just a little simpler. At GDC in 2007, then president of SCE Worldwide Studios Phil Harrison took the stage to announce PlayStation Home, a console-specific social platform where users could navigate 3D spaces to meet, talk, and play with other gamers. There would be zones themed around new releases, personal and community spaces, and the ability to customize your avatar. But despite initially promising a winter 2007 release, PlayStation Home stumbled its way out of the gate a year later, with content in short supply and sporting a beta tag that would endlessly remain in place. In spite of its flaws though, the service began to slowly mount a following. People were spending time and, perhaps more importantly, money in PlayStation Home. Unlike its unquestionably more popular counterpart Second Life, a 3D virtual world release for PC in 2003, PlayStation Home focused wholly on the PlayStation gaming community, giving them a space beyond the confines of a specific game to meet with other PlayStation gamers, even going so far as to help facilitate connecting like-minded players with the revolutionary option of being able to immediately jump in a game together, all within a 3D world. The key element to PlayStation Home becoming successful though was its accessibility. Anybody who had a PS3 could immediately boot up and play Home for free.
Back in, 2006, 2007 era, everybody knows the PlayStation 3s, well, in the US was almost $500, $600. I came from a family basically where we couldn't really afford that. So I used to beg my mom every Christmas, I want the PS3, I want the PS3. And December 24th, 2011 on Christmas Eve, I finally got a slim model of the PS3, and my mom couldn't afford any games for me. So the first game I jumped into was PlayStation Home. I didn't even know what it was, how to even communicate with others. I thought it was just a Sims game, a free little game, and I really didn't think anything of it. And that was something I got immediately hooked into because it was just extravagant space to meet people.
I got my PlayStation 3 just because of PlayStation. I wanted to play it so bad, and I don't know why. I remember watching the early trailers and thinking it was the coolest thing. And I remember getting my PlayStation, and PlayStation Home hasn't been released yet. And so waiting updates and eventually one update, and boom, there it is. And I installed it so fast, played it immediately, and fell absolutely in love with it.
PlayStation Home gave home console audiences a communication tool they had never seen before. A chance to meet and talk with people worldwide beyond the confines of a chat room in a 3D space. And to even find like-minded gamers to form friendships with, despite potentially being miles or even continents apart.
I'm originally from the NA region. I'm from the US. So I used to play US region at home. I found out making another PSN account from a different region, you could go to the Japanese region home or the UK. So for me, it was like me virtually experiencing different people's cultures and learning, different dialects. I did love the whole social world effect, especially on PS3, and like really interacting with people. So most of my friends, even now today, I still have them, and I met them on home, and I still contact them to this day. So I kind of grew up with people that were my age, and it's kind of crazy to see like with some people who I'm really close with, they have families now.
As Home, and perhaps cynically its revenue grew, it began to expand, adding more and more tools to enable users to share time together. But in 2015, with the arrival of the next generation of PlayStation, the rumours of Home's upcoming closure began to gain traction.
Damon here with IGN News. PlayStation fans are about to become PlayStation homeless. Sony has announced that it is closing down its virtual world social network, PlayStation Home.
I just remember seeing a post stating that like Japan Home was closing down, and it was kind of like a major rumor. It was just the store that was closing down. It was not like the internal server. At that time, with 2014, I'm putting two to two together. PlayStation 4 just released. PS3 is at its heyday. I could see from a company standpoint that it was like kind of cut the plug on it. That was kind of sad because I spent many hours, met a lot of friends on home. And for me, it was something that like I used to spend a lot of time. For me personally too, at that during of my like young adolescence, I had anxiety issues, which you probably can't tell now, but that was a way for me to communicate to people from the outside world and actually, share, same interests and stuff like that.
For players like Nagato and Ayanoni, PlayStation Home had not only become an important part of their childhood, but their social space of choice filled with memories. On March 31st, 2015, with its loyal audience and potentially a host of voyeurs there to see the final digital sunset, PlayStation Home closed its servers.
I was in that video. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a video of when PlayStation Home was closed, and it was the saddest thing on the planet. And I was in there. It was one of the people. It was a sad day, without a doubt. I did not enjoy that day.
And I remember, just feeling like, wow, this is it basically. And I remember like at 3 a.m. they cut the server, and it was kind of crazy because it happened like the day after was April 1st. So everybody thought it was like an April Fool's Day or something, but it was not the case. So I remember just, being like sad. Actually like not even going to school the next day because I'm like, it kind of affected me because like, wow, I really don't have that community to really talk to. I didn't have a PS4 at that time either, so I was stuck on PS3.
With the closure of PlayStation Home, not only was the service lost, but so was its data. Home wasn't on a disc or on a cartridge, and you couldn't play it offline. It lived completely within the servers that were now gone forever. The people playing Home on March 31st would be the last ever people to experience PlayStation Home. Or so they thought.
Even when it closed, I was working on, or not really working on, but trying to conceive like, there's got to be somebody out there with the same interest. Like Home was such a great game. Somebody got to be smart enough to figure out how the client server works from the actual console to the server itself. So a few years later, voila, here I am.
Nagato and the Destination Home team, sharing a love for PlayStation Home and a passion to see it return, began combing through all their PS3s for all the store data that they could find, soliciting whatever local or cache files any Home fans could find left on their dusty PS3s, with the goal of being able to reverse engineer and restore the code.
Imagine like a lost game such as PlayStation Home has its online servers, Sony shuts it down. There is really no way for the public to play such games without, people archiving it. And for me now, tons of games, not even just online based games, but games that are lost from beta builds on old development consoles get lost every day. For me, preservation is really something I take key and important because one day I would like to show, if I have kids one day, hey, this is what PlayStation Home looked like rather than just showing images.
Video game preservation isn't just something limited to Nagato and the Destination Home team though, with many game historians and passionate gamers taking important steps into preserving a still relatively young but easily lost art form.
So I came into the preservation world as someone who was just kind of frustrated with feeling like we were really only getting one small part of the story, or maybe the most popular parts of the story. My name is Kelsey Lewin. I'm the co-director of the Video Game History Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to preserving, celebrating, and teaching the history of video games. Part of preservation, too, is not just keeping the ability to play the game alive, but also to sort of keep the more ephemeral stuff still in our cultural memory. So how were people talking about this game? What was this game in its context? And how did that evolve over time? It encompasses a lot more than just the game itself. It's really the whole experience.
Preservation is nothing new. Other forms of media, particularly movies, have been actively working on restoration for decades. For video games though, especially ones housed in online servers, the importance in relative terms has only recently been recognised.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have it pretty difficult with video games compared to other forms of media. We are dealing with the lack of ability to play these games in the future if we don't have the correct tools. I mean, something like a Super Nintendo might stick around for a very long time. They're pretty hardy systems, but they're not going to stick around forever, and we need other ways other than having an old piece of hardware to be able to use some of these mediums. So with something like art or books, a purely sort of textual, visual medium, you don't really have this sort of issue, but there's a lot less going on with a still image or even a moving image than there is with a playable, interactable thing that may require some sort of software emulation or otherwise to continue to access.
The way how online server games work, it's way much harder. There is a lot of data that has to be previously archived without, actually taking the hard drive from said console and dumping that and like revamping that, or basically taking that old data and revamping it basically by decrypting it and all of that fun stuff. So reverse engineering comes into play when trying to figure out how to basically get the game and client server working and how to basically get those two systems communicating.
Despite the challenges of reverse engineering PlayStation Home, progress has been made by Nagato and the Destination Home team. As of when this video is published, they've managed to restore and host over a dozen spaces, mini-games, and complete avatar customization. Yet despite all this incredible progress, the project is still missing a vital ingredient, the key element that brought PlayStation Home to life: the community.
With online and community-based games, it's very difficult to sort of preserve the entirety of the experience, not just from a technical perspective. It's based on how many people are still playing and kind of how the context of it changes over time. So playing PlayStation Home in 2021 is going to be a very different experience. Even if you're able to keep everything else exactly the same, it's going to be very different than how people might have experienced it in, say, 2009. It's important to think about, what is it that we want to keep alive about PlayStation Home? Obviously, making sure that we still have the ability to connect through this service, still have the accessibility and the usability, and that people can still access it. But keeping the community alive and sort of the culture alive is a whole other story.
What made home was the actual community, really getting to communicate with other people. It was like going to like a virtual New York City. I'm from New York, but like for me, it was like actually meeting people from different cultures, different spectrums. So that's what I really enjoyed about home, the community. Ultimate goal is to get a online client working for the PlayStation 3. Once I see another person in the lobby and I say hello and hello, we can actually say hello together. That's something our team, that's the day.
My name is Ayanani, and I'm a content creator on Dreams. I'm responsible for recreating the PlayStation Home creation. When Dreams was announced, I immediately started like a notepad on my phone and writing ideas of what I wanted to create. I was like, I want to make a PlayStation Home thing because it's gone and it's something I absolutely love playing.
Despite perhaps lacking the technical know-how that the Destination Home team possesses, a single creator using Dreams, an extremely robust game creation tool released for PlayStation 4 in 2019, has also decided to try and keep PlayStation Home alive in his own, perhaps equally creative way.
I was a massive Little Big Planet creator. I never published much. And so even back in Little Big Planet, I attempted to also do a PlayStation Home type of environment or gameplay. But it's very different in that game because it's a 2D platformer. I jumped into create mode and was like, I'm gonna make Harbor Studio, the very first apartment in PlayStation Home. I put the blocks down and I shaped it, and I'm like, this is actually pretty easy to do. And then after the Harbor Studio, it spiraled, and now I have all these other ones.
Despite basic 3D space creation appearing easy on the surface, Iannoni decided to go above and beyond for its recreation. Not content on just building an illustration of the experience, Iannoni has tried to capture the essence of what he loved about PlayStation Home.
Every time I think about PlayStation Home, it's being able to customize my home, have my friends come over, check it out, and then customize while they're there and drop furniture on them and be hilarious, things like that. And that was like the first thing I did in Dreams. I made the Harbor Studio. Right when it was done, I was like, all right, let's make the couch, and then let's make it so that we can move the couch.
But Iannoni didn't stop there. When his replica of PlayStation Home started gathering attention in the Dreamiverse, Dream's online user-generated creation tool, he began investing more and more time into the project, including any functionality where he could.
Adding like things like the cash system obviously wasn't in Dreams, but I would like people to be able to get a virtual job in the game to earn money or doing tasks. Like right now I have the fountain game in the middle of Central Plaza where you fly the UFO and you have to collect the bubbles. It's very simple. I also have a cheat code, if you can figure it out. It's in the main menu of the Dreams, the very first level, and you can get infinite money if you do it. It's kind of an admin thing, but I'm sure you can figure it out.
Despite all of the progress though, Iannoni has inevitably stumbled into the same issue Destination Home has. To fully replicate the original PlayStation Home experience, you need the community.
Dreams was supposed to have multiplayer at some point, and it doesn't still. So I'm kind of holding back on it until that's available, because I feel like that is a massive part of PlayStation Home. It's showing your friends, look what I have, look at the furniture I have and the house I have. Even though back then it was real money you're spending on it, now it's like, look what I earned within the Dreams level. It's kind of hard to say where it's going from here until that's available. I mean, I like recreating it, but I don't feel like single player is the point of it, I suppose.
There's no doubt there's still technical hurdles for both Destination Home and Home in Dreams to overcome. And even if that's accomplished, there's still the question of whether a community can ever function again like it did in PlayStation Home at its peak. One thing that isn't questionable though is the passion for the project.
I don't think there was anything like it at the time, and so it really grabbed me, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
This will be literally the best time to have like home and social world, because everyone's stuck in the house, really can't really interact. I would literally go on home right now. If like home was up right now, I would probably be in the playground, just listening to music and playing like the horse game or something, or just talking to people. Me working on this project is something that I'm doing surely for fun. I enjoy working on it every day. So for me, it's like a passion project. So I would be doing this regardless, even with like no one watching at all.
The reality though is that even if these projects never fully come to fruition, their current state still has important value. PlayStation Home is a snapshot in time, a relic of an era that, at its best, brought people around the world together in a 3D space on console for the very first time. And at its worst, normalised flagrant use of microtransactions and advertising. But video game history isn't just a record of success stories, it also documents the missteps and the failures. It's how the medium grows and evolves, and as more and more time passes, it's more important than ever to make sure that it's preserved.
If you go into a bookstore right now, like a Barnes & Noble or something, and you look at the shelves that are for the video game section, and I can send you a photo if you would like, there's about 3 or 4 books that are actually telling a story about video games. And then if you go over and you look at the music section or the movies and film section, there are just hundreds or thousands of biographies and history books and interesting stories that people are telling about these mediums. And so the Video Game History Foundation really wants to sort of usher in a world where people are celebrating video game history and talking about it and continuing to treat this like the really cool art form and cultural sort of medium that it is.
Fantastic work by companies like the Video Game Foundation is already being done, but these are just the first steps to preserving an art form for future generations to come. And despite all of PlayStation Home's flaws, its moment in time has as much historical value as any other significant generation-defining piece of media. Large companies understandably treat their platforms as commodities, and they are unfortunately easily discarded when they've served their commercial purpose. But for the fans, this is where they grew up. They learned about different cultures and formed lifelong friendships. They want to cherish these memories, and if the companies won't preserve that, then it's down to the people. PlayStation Home may be long gone, at least in an official capacity, but PlayStation Home will continue to live on in the passionate community that grew from it.
People were just like, tell me, nah, that, you leave that game in the past, get a PS4 or whatever. But for me, that game was something profound in my life, and it's really about the community base for it. That's what made home.